Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have an updated tier list for the OP08 meta with starter decks included for the One Piece card game. This is going to be a pretty big shift in the meta, I think, compared to most starter deck releases, and most people have been calling it the 8.5 meta, which I will be doing, including this video as well. So honestly, I think all the starter decks are pretty good. There's some really great cards, not only for their intended leaders, but for generically for the color that they're from, and I've been doing a lot of playtesting and a lot of deck building, and honestly having a good time with it. So really looking forward to seeing what this meta looks like fully realized, and this tier list is going to be more personalized and more opinionated than some of my other ones, mostly because we don't have any results here in North America yet, and also when this was in Japan, Trafalgar Law was legal for the majority, if not all of this format, which means that it just wasn't, they didn't fully realize it in there at the end of the day. So I think that's going to make some differences for it. We're going to know what decks kind of did well in Japan too, but this is going to be, again, opinionated, and once we get results here in North America, I'll make sure to do an updated one once we get there too. But if you guys don't want to miss that video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help, and I'm looking forward to honestly what happens with this meta and what interesting and unique builds people are really able to build with this new fun card pool that we have. So I will say also, so the three leaders we have here are banned. Obviously Law and Sakazuki are banned. We also have Sanji, which you can get out of the starter deck pack that you get, but you are not able to play this until December, since the reprint set isn't legal until their actual printing. So no Sanji for us. I don't think it would have been a big deal, but it's fine in my mind. We still have a good amount of variety as is. So if you guys also don't know the tiers, there's best decks and format. So these are the ones I would expect to essentially top every event. I would be very surprised if none of these topped. If one of these decks that we're going to put up there don't top. We got tier 1, which I would expect it to top most events, if not all, but most. Tier 1.5, I would say I could expect it to get some occasional tops, but not very often. We've got experimental, which are mostly just builds that I've been tinkering with, and I've got some success and some thoughts with, but not necessarily bold enough to say that I think it will top very often. And then unlikely, I would be surprised if it topped an event. These are not necessarily, again, I don't want to prevent people from playing a deck that they really believe in. These are just not decks that I haven't believed in yet. So if there's a deck or a build or something that I've missed, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments too, and I'm looking forward to, again, what people are building in this format in general. So we're going to go sequentially based on the 34 leaders that we've got below us, except for I'm going to just start off with the best decks in format. I think it's still Lucci, Black Yellow Luffy, and Dofi is the new ad for it, but these are likely going to be the best decks in this format. I think these will top pretty much every event that we have right now in 8.5, and I think that's pretty common knowledge. I'm not trying to say that I'm saying anything new, but I mostly agree with what people have been saying with these leaders, that Lucci's still good, Black Yellow Luffy's still just a presence in this game, and I think Dofi's going to be a really good aggressive tempo deck, but it also can still fall behind with Rob Lucci's just amazing removal that exists in this game. So we're going to put those three up there real quick. I don't think those need to be explained much more. So moving sequentially, we've got Zoro, which I'm going to put in 1.5. I think this deck is still solid. I think that Dofi kind of eats it out, but in the sense that it doesn't really get to be in this format as much. I think Dofi just is like the better like tempo aggression deck for it. Zoro could still do well, and it can do well against stuff like Purple Luffy, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I think this deck it was kind of started off tier 1. I think it's going to drop down to 1.5. It can still be viable, but I don't think it's going to be as present as it was before the Star decks came out. We also have Red Green Law, which I'm going to put on likely. It did get a top in Europe this past weekend in a X2 record, but the player just they played 3 Luccis, I think they said, and then they played 0 copies of Black Yellow Luffy, so they went X2, but beating everything else. But I'd be really surprised if this was able to get another top in this format. I think Dofi just increases, it's just like a really good matchup for it too, and it's just hard to deal with. So we'll see if that's true or not, but we're going to put that there. Newgate I think is like 1.5. I'd be curious to see if Zoro or Newgate are just kind of like the better red deck in general. I know like we get some new tools, and a lot of the new tools we have are either 1, more aggressive, or 2, more defensive as well. We have like the new Atmos, which lets us attack and then not take a life that turn, which is pretty impactful, and just kind of stalls us. It lets us get into the late game a little bit healthier more often, which means that our 9-drop Newgates are just so impactful when we're able to kind of chain them together. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Newgate looks like right now, but I think it can be very present and pretty popular with the current build that we're able to do. Next up, we've got Garp. I'm going to put it in experimental, but honestly, I think there's just some really good cards. Like Red and Black, I've made videos on this. I think it just has like really generically great cards, right? We do get to take advantage of some of the smoker cards, including the Sengoku. Being able to play that for 1 and put 2 cards into our trash and draw 3 really helps out with Garp. It doesn't, with a lot of black decks that are popular, like Rob Lucci, and also like Gecko previously, being able to put cards into our trash for free really helps out a lot of our effects. And so cards like Garp and other black leaders that don't do that kind of fall behind. But I think Sengoku's a really good card. I think that the new Hina is really good for the leader. I think the fact that like we can also play this new 7-cost Newgate as well to get rid of a 5k. There's a lot of just good cards with this Garp that exist, and I think that it could do moderately well in this format. If I'm still experimenting with it. A 4 life leader has to be really, really good, but it does have the potential for some of the best removal in the game. Like the effect for Garp is still really good. It's just there's no real cards to take advantage of it right now, but I do think it's worth testing if you haven't already. Next up, we got Smoker, which I'm going to put in tier 1 right now. I think it's generally just a solid deck, right? It has a really good removal. The new Shishigi for it's really great. Obviously, Garp was, if we were talking about like the Sengoku and stuff, you just get some really good removals, and you get a little bit more aggressive pressure because you get to be a 7k, I think, pretty often in this format. But if I'm going to be honest, if we're talking about how good 8-drop Moria is, Lucci just gets the better one, hands down. Smoker's potential to abuse 8-drop Moria is way lower than Rob Lucci, so I think Smoker might have a chance to be more consistent, but I think late game, I think Lucci still has the better potential for it. So it's still viable. You can definitely still play the deck, but I think Lucci's in still a better spot right now. So I do think the Shishigi we get is absurd, and it's so good that I think a lot of your games will depend if you see it or not, but it's super searchable, and it just helps you mid-game if you're able to find it. So we're going to put Smoker in tier 1. I think it's going to be present, but it's going to be difficult to be better than Rob Lucci, I think, for a lot of black decks that exist right now. Next up, we've got Nami. Nami, I'm going to put bottom of tier 1. I think like Dofi, and also we'll talk about Purple Luffy, there are just cards that just exist that make Nami a little bit worse right now. If we're playing a more aggressive format, Nami's going to have a hard time existing from that. It's had a really good run for the last couple months, and I could be wrong. It could still be just as present, but I think Nami is going to be a little bit worse due to the star decks releasing. So I know that she's, a lot of people are either love or hate the deck. Most people I talk to probably hate, if I'm being honest, but I don't think it's going to be as present with as many decks that exist that counter it compared to previous formats, if I'm correct on my format knowledge. So I think it's going to be a little bit worse. It's probably the end of tier 1. It might bump it down to tier 1.5, but I still think it's going to be present in one way or the other. Next up, we got Katakuri. I think Katakuri is probably like 1.5. The star deck that Katakuri gets is pretty weak, if I'm being honest, compared to like, for itself it's fine, but compared to the other 4 or 5 good star decks that we have, Katakuri just obviously just didn't really get a lot of support. Like, not a lot of people are playing like the 6-cross Linlin. The 5-cost Katakuri is a nice card, but not like super good for the deck. And I think like there might be some ways for it to be good in this meta, but and it's more of just like the decks that are good or better for your matchups than necessarily the card pool changing for Katakuri. So I'll keep it at 1.5. It was able to get some tops in 8 vanilla, but I'll be curious to see if it's able to get many tops from this. Next up, we got Sabo, which I've been really enjoying this deck. I'm actually going to maybe bump it a little bit higher than it should, but we're going to put in 1.5. It did get a top in Europe as well on this past week. For the Paris finals, it got a top 32 finish. The leaders, just if we're running into more like Rob Lucci and like hard removal, I think there's a lot of good potential for it. I do think like Dofi can be a bad matchup at times because they bounce back to hand, which you don't get protection for, but I really do like a Navy build that I've been playing where we play like brand new, and we also play like Hina, which we're able to use Hina's effect to put a Dawn underneath our leader for free every turn moving forward, which helps out a lot. We also have like the Sabo 5-drop. There's just like a lot of good cards that exist for this deck at times. So I like the idea of what this deck can do. It might be a little bit undertuned, or 4 life might be a little bit too harmful for it, but if you're able to set up, there's a lot of countering to like Lucci and Black Yo Luffy you can do, which just makes it difficult difficult for the deck to really do anything, which I think is nice. So or those decks to do anything. So I like the deck. I think it's been a sleeper pick, kind of on the back of my mind, and I think that maybe some of the new cards can help it escalate to a little bit more viable in this one. So we're going to put it at 1.5, which maybe is a little bit higher, but we're going to leave it there. We also have the Betty, where I'm just going to put this unlikely. Some of these leaders are just ones that I asked my chat to if they want me to put it on here. So we have like 34, but not all of these have like topped or done anything relevant anytime recently. These are just like suggestions from chat from previous tier lists. So I don't think Betty's necessarily there. I know some people were talking about it with some of the new cards that existed, like the Nami for Betty, but I really, of the 1 month that we've had this format, I've probably played over 100 games of One Piece, and I've never faced against a Betty. So I don't think it's going to be that relevant. I could be wrong on that one, but we're going to put it there. Next up, we got Purple Luffy, which I think this deck is going to be super viable in itself. You do have like some rough matchups into like Dofi at times where you kind of have to race them, but this deck was just wanting a real archetype to use, and it finally got one. I think there's some really good cards that you get to use with it. The fact that you actually have some good things to ramp into. Lin from OP08 Vanilla has been a really good add for the deck, and I really just kind of like how the deck works. It used to just be like, well, you draw a lot of cards, and if you don't see Kaido, you likely lose. So to be able to have like different boss monsters or ways to use your Dawn, I've been really liking Luffy in general. I think the deck is pretty nice. So we're going to leave it here at tier 1, and I think it's going to be pretty present in this meta in general. Next up, we got Enel, and I almost want to put it unlikely if I'm being honest. I don't feel like it does really well into this format that we're getting. I think that Rob Lucci, Monkey D. Luffy, like Luffy maybe is like a 50-50 at times, but like Dofi, you have a rough time. Purple Luffy, Nami, if it's still present, like Lucci's able just to remove everything you can. Luffy goes wide and goes more aggressive. Dofi does the same thing. I think it's going to be a rough format to be an NL player, if I'm being honest. So I might be putting him a little bit lower than he deserves to be, but he is in kind of like a rough spot, and I think he's going to really be feeling that. So we're going to put this in unlikely and just kind of leave him there. Next up, we've got Reiju. I think we're going to leave Reiju in like the middle of 1.5 for now. It's doesn't really get anything. The blue package is really Warlord based. The purple package is really Straw Hat based. So I think the best card we get is like Uso Hachi, which I think you do run that card. I think that's a really good, generically good purple card that helps us get around like Saba blockers specifically and Rebecca's. But other than that, I don't think Reiju gets too much from this set, if I'm being honest. It's probably going to be as present and as good as it was. Dofi might just be too fast for it though, but being able to like play out your Ichi, give something -7 and get like double attacks into the board, that might be good enough against Dofi or even Purple Luffy at times. So we're going to keep it around here. I think it's going to be present. I think people are going to still play it, but I don't think it's doing anything super new from this new format. We also have the Perona, which we're gonna just keep at tier 1.5. Also, it did get like a top in one of the events the last couple weeks, and I think it's still a relevant deck generically. But the green film stuff doesn't really help it. You can go more into a navy build, with this deck, which I think is cool. Again, like Hina still is great, even if we have to like bottom deck stuff. We don't get like the Sengoku effect, but yeah, I think the deck is just fine. Being able to interact with Dofi is also a really big boon for this. Being able to just rest everything, play Ryuma, and get that early board advantage, and kind of really cut off their tempo. I think Perona has a really good shot to counter Dofi specifically, and it's kind of the rest of the format that's tough, because like Purple Luffy can just be really, really aggressive against it, but we're going to leave it right there. And then Yamato, and I've been saying this for a while. I was very surprised. If I 2 weeks ago, if I made this video, I would have definitely put it unlikely. We'll keep it in tier 1.5. It's been doing really hot. It's been getting like a big hot streak for the last 2 weeks, getting consistent tops across the board, and including second place at the Top Cut regionals that happened this past weekend. So I think it's something that we'll have to see how it adjusts to the new format. I think Purple Luffy's going to have a hard time against it, but I think Dofi's going to do well into it because it goes really wide. And being a 5-life leader is really strong against Yamato because it's a little bit trickier for them to get that last one hit before you go down to 0. So I think that helps out a lot. Purple Luffy, I think, will have a bad time because you want to use your leader effect, but then you get really punished for it. So I don't know. We'll kind of see how it is, but I think Yamato can definitely be present if it was already, you know, kind of present in it as it was in the last couple of weeks. So we do have that there. Gecko, honestly, I think Gecko can still be your like tier 1. I'm going to put this in 1.5 too. I feel like most of these are, I feel bad that most of these are going into 1.5, and I will be reordering this at the end too based on my thoughts, but I do think like Gecko is specifically it just like, again, it has like the Rob Lucci effect. I have seen some builds though that use like the Navy package as well. The fact that you can use Hina to give an extra Dawn to your leader comes up because you need Dawn for your leader effect. So I think that is impactful and helps you get some like more tempo plays at times if you're already playing stuff like brand new and getting those additional effects. But I don't know. I think Gecko's in an okay spot. It's just like there's so many like better black decks at times that it's hard to want to play him when he's really consistent, but like his high end is not as tall, I feel like. So we're going to leave him in 1.5. Bonnie, we're going to bump up all the way up to here. And if I was to say top 5 list going on into this format, I think it's going to be Rob Lucci, Monkey D. Luffy, Black Yellow, Blue Dofi, Purple Luffy, and Green Bonnie. I think these are the 5 that I would say are the best right now. I think they're very present. I think Bonnie gets some really good matchups into Dofi if it's going to be more present. I think you get some really good advantage from the cards that you get. Shanks is an ad from the starter deck that people put a couple copies at, which is really good for controlling the board and getting that advantage. And it's a 9 cost 11k, which some decks have a really hard time answering to. So I think the deck's in an okay spot. I wouldn't say it's amazing right now compared to, again, Rob Lucci, Monkey D. Luffy, and Dofi. But being able to get some more interactions and like just another like a better like generic boss monster at times really helps out. So we'll see what Bonnie looks like, but I think the deck is in an okay spot and is going to be pretty present in this meta. Next up, we've got Vegapunk, and I'm actually going to put this in experimental. It hasn't really done anything special, I feel like, recently, and it doesn't really get new cards from their card pool, maybe like 1 or 2. Like so you can add like the 6-drop Linlin, I guess. There might be some ads you want from the starter deck, but generally I think this deck is it's really interesting, right? It's different than any other deck in the game. I do think it can kind of out-resource Dofi really well, which is really tempting, and some other decks. I was playing a game with Jonas the other day, and it took forever, but he definitely outgrinded me with Vegapunk. So I think the deck has potential. I haven't done a lot of hands-on testing with it, but I think it's something that can definitely exist in this format. I just haven't done enough testing with it. So we're going to leave that there. We've got Boa. I think Boa, I'm going to leave it at 1.5. I kind of want to bump it up to tier 1, but we'll leave it at 1.5. Obviously, Dofi, I think, takes advantage of the package that we get way better, but Boa can still do really well. I think the 4-cost Boa Hancock is fantastic for this deck, being able to just get like the additional top 3 search, and also the 4-cost Law to have another way to bounce cards back to hand so you get more draw with your leader. It can definitely be really great, right? It's kind of, I think the biggest issue with blue at times is like we don't really have like a late game boss monster, even though we can get there kind of consistently. Like the 10-drop Kaidos are nice, and like the card draw or like bouncing back with the like an 8 and a 3, but the lack of like really good hard removal, I think, is really holding back like what Boa's potential can be, right? If you could do something like that, I think Boa would be a little bit stronger, but it's like a little bit tougher for Boa to exist when I think Dofi is just kind of better for it. But you do get some advantage from some of the 7 Warlord cards you get, and I think Boa is worth mentioning, but I think, again, more people will kind of walk towards what Dofi's kind of doing. Next up, Chopper. Because this is OP08, I include all the OP08 leaders. I don't think Chopper is going to be that good. I think if there's a red-green leader, I think Law would be a little bit better than it, but I did want to include it. Honestly, like as we've seen, like the package that Chopper gets isn't terrible. It's just like Zoro takes advantage of it a little bit better. I've also seen like some animal builds of Law that people have been telling me about too, but I just don't think it's as present I don't think it's as good in Chopper, even though Chopper can be very good at times. So it's just like we have so much removal that exists. It's just really, really, really tough. So we're going to leave it there, but we'll see as well. We've got Marco. Marco, I think, is actually in a really good spot. There are some issues with it, and I think the biggest thing is that you have to pilot it really well. It wants to be like a defensive control deck without really like a really good blocker system for it, right? Like I think part of the reason that Rob Lucci and like Sakazuki was able to be like a more defensive 4-cost 4-life leader, just because we were able to play Rebecca and Saba, which are really good blockers to help us kind of get that defensive parity. But Marco, like our 4-cost blocker is good. We get to play like 9-drop Newgate a little bit easier. So I think the deck is really good. It's very tight on its gameplay, but we do appreciate the new 7-drop Newgate that gets out of the starter deck. So I think it's going to be present. I might be putting it up a little bit too high for tier 1, but I've been playing it a lot. I've been really believing in it, and I've been really enjoying it as well. So we're going to leave it there. What else do we have? Carrot. Carrot can be kind of good. I know that it can have like a good match against black yellow, and I think it can have the potential to be good against like blue Dofi as well. But I haven't honestly done a lot of testing with it. I'm bumping it up. Maybe I should just keep it experimental. Nah, I'll keep it up in tier 1.5. I'll give people some hope for it. But I think generically Bonnie's just a better green leader. So it's kind of like the same thing that Gecko Moria has where with like Rob Lucci, where it honestly does good. It's a good deck, but there's just something that's similar but better. So people won't play the lackluster version of it, if I want to say that. But Carrot does get like some better resting opportunities. I think it can be really good against Black Yellow Luffy. Not that Bonnie's really necessarily having an issue with that matchup. And it's just like, again, like Lucci just prevents us so much, so we're gonna leave it there. These next two, I'm gonna just put both of them right here. We got King and Charlotte Pudding. I've been doing a good amount of testing with these, with some of the new cards that we got, and I think they're really close to being super viable. I think Pudding, I put it here at like the beginning of OP08. We moved it down to 1.5. I'm gonna put it in experimental, to be honest. I do think the deck can still be good. I think like there could be some potential for like 6-drop Lin to be just a good like tempo play for the deck too. It's just kind of like in a weird spot, I feel like. And then King, I still believe. I still believe if we are able to find a build for this deck where it is, just is able to take advantage of all the stuff that we get from purple, and it can be really close to like a new Sakazuki, because like the leader effects are great, right? -2, like our card pool is great. The fact that we're Animal Kingdom package, that we can play like Onigashima. There's like some really, really good cards for King, and we just are sometimes behind because we are a 4-life leader trying to be defensive. So, but I really do like this deck. I enjoy playing it, and I'm looking forward to some new builds with it as well. Next up, we got Calgara. We're gonna, I guess we'll put it right here next to Katakuri. It's still kind of where it's at. I don't even, this might be tier 1.5 might be too high for it, but we'll leave it there. I know this is turning into the default Eggman just thinks the deck is okay tier, but it's kind of just where it's at, so we'll leave it there. Tier for experimental, I'm also going to put Kaido here. I've been really looking for another purple deck that can use the package that Luffy gets to see if there's something that's better than the way it does it. And so honestly, a deck that has Onigashima online seems really, really strong, because you're able to ramp. If you go second, you can play 7-drop Luffy on turn 3, which is really good for our tempo and stuff. Kaido being 5-life is great. Being able to, like, the -7 helps us go for games sometimes. There's some really just good stuff that this leader is able to do, and I think that's worth kind of mentioning. So I do like the idea of it. We're going to keep it in experimental, but I hope that, like, it's a shame that we only have like one purple leader that's viable right now, if that's the case. So I'm hoping for some other ones that to maybe pop up, except for Reiju, which I guess it's a purple leader, but it's just really construed for that. And also talking about purple leaders, actually I guess we're just going to put all these right here. Both these decks too, I think have some real good potential with the new purple Straw Hat. I built this one. Obviously we're more tailored for the 10 cost, but the fact that we have the 4-cost Zoro that can search our 10-drop without like losing tempo is really, really good for this deck. I think that helps out the deck immensely. The fact that we're able to play 1-drop red Nami that helps us search all of our pieces because it just looks for Straw Hats is really good, which is also why I think Use's Kid can be viable too. The fact that we're a 5-life leader is great. Your opponent's going to hit us down to 4 anyway, so it's just like a free life from there. We have like the 3-drop Pudding that exists. That means that we can aggressively use our leader effect and not get punished for it early. And if we play like Pudding and then 5 costs Eustace Kid next turn, we can use our leader effect and then ramp a Dawn, which is really tempting. So I think there's just some really cool stuff from this leader and what we get to do with it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing if there's some cool builds with red purple, because I think like the package for this is really good, and there might be some red purple leaders, including like I've even looked at Uta, and that deck doesn't even looks like terrible with the package either. So and then to kind of wrap it up, I guess we also have Uta, which I don't know how I guess she is a star deck leader, but she's way back here. I think she's fine. I'm actually not going to put her in tier 1.5. I don't know if like the package that we get is good enough. We can play bodies on the board, but we don't really have any way to interact with our opponent that often. I'm Invincible can win some games, and we do still get like a lot of card advantage, but I just don't think it's necessarily in 1.5 right now. So I might just be playing like the 50 film version, which might be cheese, but I'm not as confident as this deck compared to a lot of the other star deck leaders. We also have Sabo and Ace. I don't really think they really got anything from this. Sabo gets like, I guess like 7 cost Newgate if you want it, but it doesn't really do anything. Too bad like this Ace isn't red and yellow, because if we're able to use like the new 5 cost Ace in this deck, it'd be a little bit better. But the fact that there's just no way to use like the yellow and red with a Whitebeard leader right now. So we can play like the 2 cost Ace to play it out, the 5 cost, but then we don't get rushed with it, which is kind of wonky. So it's what it is. I guess if you want more copies of Ace for your 2 cost Ace and Sabo, you can do that, but I'll move it to experimental. Why not? I don't think blue yellow Ace got anything, but Sabo maybe we got some new stuff with the red starter deck. You can test it out. I just haven't done it. And then starter deck 14, Luffy, we're gonna put up here in the tier 1. I think the deck is still good. I think Smoker might be better than it. Obviously the new Hina is really helpful for the deck to be really defensive, but you also aren't as aggressively leaning as Lucci at times. So I'll definitely have to test it out more, but I think there's a good chance that Luffy can still be present, but we'll just have to see what the next couple weeks kind of show. So this is kind of where I'm feeling. If I was to change any of these around, I guess Marco should be at the back. I'm not as confident. I know that I'm trying not to be biased, but I really do like this deck. I think these are all pretty good here. These are just, I think, generic. I mean, if I want to, I'll put Sabo at the back. Why not? We'll put Sabo in the back. But the rest I think are all just viable leaders. Half of these, I think they're just decks that are just better than it, but with the same kind of package. For example, like Gecko Moria and Carrot are just kind of worse copies of Rob Lucci and the Green Bonnie. These are decks that I've been testing on the side that I think there is some potential, but I haven't done enough testing, and obviously we haven't seen these at tournaments. And then these are just decks that I've been forced to talk about before, and I think are just kind of unlikely, so we're going to keep it there. So maybe I'm putting it now way too low, to be honest, but I really just don't think the deck is super viable right now. I think the format got worse for it, so we'll see if that's true or not. But this is my tier list. I know it's kind of rambly, obviously really opinionated. Don't feel like this is the only tier list that exists or this is set in stone. These are more of just my thoughts personally going on into this format than anything too concrete, so I hope you guys take it as that and not as like the only way to think of this new format. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing results, looking forward to what you guys are building and your comments below as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.